He thought his drunken antics gave him the right to mock a Royal Guardsman, shoving a rotten sandwich in his face. But what happened next silenced the laughter and left the crowd stunned. This shocking twist became an unforgettable lesson. Let's start from the beginning. But before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. We share the untold stories, secrets, and traditions of the British Guards every day. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. It was a brisk morning outside Buckingham Palace, where the Royal Guardsman stood immovable, a pillar of dignity amidst the bustling chaos of tourists. His stoic gaze pierced the horizon, seemingly unbothered by the countless cameras flashing in his direction. For the visitors, he wasn't just a guard, he was a prop, a part of the royal spectacle. They giggled and posed, marveling at his legendary discipline. And then, like an unwelcome gust of wind, he appeared. A man, perhaps in his 50s, stumbled out from the crowd. His face was flushed red, a telltale sign of both cold weather and a bottle of cheap wine he'd been clinging to like a lifeline. His tattered jacket barely held together, and his unsteady gait gave him away instantly. The scent of spilled alcohol and poor decisions wafted through the air, turning heads and sparking murmurs. "Is he drunk?" someone whispered, as if the answer wasn't painfully obvious. The man's appearance was a stark contrast to the poised guardsman. He swayed side to side, muttering incoherently to himself, before locking his bleary eyes on the guard. In his intoxicated mind, the guardsman wasn't a symbol of royal tradition or military discipline. No, to him, this was a man who had been standing for hours and clearly needed his help. "Well, look at you, standing there all stiff and hungry," the man slurred loudly, his voice cutting through the hum of the crowd. A few people chuckled nervously. Others began recording, sensing something ridiculous was about to unfold. The man reached into his pocket and triumphantly produced half a sandwich. Not just any sandwich, though. This one was aged to perfection, or rather decay. Mold speckled the bread, and a strange, sour odor accompanied it. He wobbled closer, waving his grotesque offering like it was the crown jewels. "Come on, soldier boy, take a bite," he bellowed, staggering forward. The guardsman, as expected, remained motionless. His discipline was unwavering, but one could almost imagine a flicker of incredulity behind his fixed gaze. Surely this wasn't happening. Surely even he didn't deserve this level of absurdity. The crowd, now fully engaged, erupted into laughter. Phones were out, cameras rolling. This wasn't just a morning tour anymore, it was entertainment, live and unscripted. Little did they know, the chaos was only beginning. The man staggered closer to the guardsman, his wine-stained bravado on full display. "Oi, soldier boy," he bellowed, his words slurred and exaggerated, drawing every eye in the vicinity. "You must be starving, standing here all day like a statue." His tone carried the unmistakable confidence of someone who believed the world revolved around him. After all, he was a tourist, and wasn't all this for his entertainment? With a theatrical flourish, he reached into his grimy pocket. The crowd leaned in, some out of curiosity, others out of dread. What emerged could barely be classified as food. A half sandwich, its bread streaked with shades of green, glistening with questionable moisture. The sour stench was enough to make even the boldest bystanders recoil. "Here, take it," he commanded, waving the moldy offering as if it were an act of charity rather than an insult. He leaned in closer, his body swaying with the grace of a collapsing tower. "You're hungry, right? Just eat, for God's sake." The guardsman, unflinching, remained a picture of discipline. His gaze didn't waver, his posture didn't falter, as if this absurd scene were just another chapter in the long history of dealing with entitled tourists. The crowd erupted into a mix of laughter and disbelief. Phones were whipped out, cameras rolling to capture this surreal spectacle. "Is he serious?" a teenager muttered, eyes wide. A small child tugged on his mother's coat and asked, "Why is he trying to feed the guard?" The mother sighed, shaking her head. "Some people just don't know when to stop." The drunkard, seemingly encouraged by the crowd's reactions, leaned in even further, nearly stumbling into the guardsman. The tension was palpable. The guardsman's unwavering composure contrasted sharply with the man's escalating foolishness, highlighting a clash between dignity and disrespect that left the audience torn between amusement and discomfort. At that moment, everyone wondered, how far would this man go before the situation turned? And more importantly, how would the unshakable guardsman handle it? Just as the drunkard leaned in for another attempt, the moldy sandwich shaking precariously in his unsteady hand, the atmosphere shifted. A ripple of tension spread through the crowd as two members of palace security emerged with the precision of a well-rehearsed ballet. Their expressions were the perfect mix of calm professionalism and thinly veiled exasperation. This clearly wasn't their first rodeo. The first guard didn't hesitate. With a single swift motion, he swatted the rancid sandwich from the man's grip. It sailed through the air in a dramatic arc, landing unceremoniously in the gutter where even the pigeons seemed reluctant to investigate. The crowd collectively gasped, then burst into laughter. A nearby teenager exclaimed, "Did you see that? He batted it like a pro." Before the drunk man could register his loss, the second guard stepped in. With a level of efficiency that would have impressed a judo instructor, he spun the man around, pinning him face first into the cobblestones. The crack of the man's bottle hitting the ground echoed, followed by his indignant groan. "It was just a bloody sandwich." The guards, unamused, exchanged a brief glance. One muttered under his breath, just loud enough for the closest spectators to hear, "And it's just a bloody arrest." The remark, laced with dry British humor, sent a ripple of chuckles through the onlookers. Phones were raised higher, capturing every second for the inevitable viral moment. Meanwhile, the guardsman remained statuesque, as if the chaos unfolding inches away was as inconsequential as a passing breeze. The contrast couldn't have been starker. The guardsman, the embodiment of royal dignity, and the drunkard, the epitome of modern entitlement. The crowd, now fully entertained, erupted into cheers and applause. A middle-aged American tourist remarked, "Now that's the kind of discipline you pay to see." His wife, shaking her head, replied, "Honestly, some people just don't know how to behave." As the man was dragged away, still grumbling about his act of kindness, the guardsman subtly adjusted his hat. It was a small, almost imperceptible movement, but to those watching closely, it felt like a silent acknowledgement. Another day, another fool dealt with. The drunk man, now sprawled in the dirt, looked utterly defeated. His bottle of wine had rolled away, the sandwich was being nibbled on by a pigeon, and his dignity had been thoroughly trampled. The guardsman, however, hadn't moved an inch. His stoic posture remained unbroken, though some swore they saw the faintest twitch of amusement at the corner of his mouth. The crowd began dispersing, still giggling and sharing the videos they'd taken. As the drunkard was dragged off by security, someone shouted, "Hope you've learned your lesson." The man groaned in reply, "Never waste a sandwich, mate." The guardsman, unbothered and unshaken, adjusted his hat slightly and returned to his silent vigil. For him, it was just another day at Buckingham Palace. For the drunk tourist, it was a day he'd never forget, and a story the internet would replay endlessly. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like and let us know in the comments which guard tradition you'd like us to cover next. See you in the next video.